Hey guys, Jared here, and today we're going to take a look at the ASUS ROG Strix GL553VE laptop and find out what it's got to offer and how well it performs in games. Inside the box, we've got the laptop itself, manual and warranty information, ROG Seeker gaming mouse, power cable, and power brick. Let's start with the specs of the laptop. In my configuration here, there's an Intel 7700HQ quad-core Kaby Lake CPU, which runs at 2.8 GHz and can turbo up to 3.8 GHz. There's 16GB of DDR4 memory available, running at 2400 MHz with the option of 32GB available. For storage, there's a 256GB SATA 3 M.2 SSD and a 1TB 7200 RPM hard drive. However, different sizes are available. There's an NVIDIA 1050 Ti for the graphics, which powers the 15.6-inch 60Hz 1080p IPS panel. For network connectivity, there's a built-in gigabit Ethernet port and Intel dual-band 7265 Wi-Fi, which supports 802.11ac, as well as Bluetooth 4.0. The laptop has a brushed black metallic look to it, with some tasteful orange-colored accents around it, and overall, I think it both looks and feels nice. The physical dimensions of the laptop are 38.3cm in width, 25.5cm in depth, and 3cm in height, which makes it just a little thicker than laptops I've recently reviewed, but it's still a decent size, not too thick. The total weight of the laptop with battery is advertised at 2.5 kilos, and I found my particular model to weigh just under 2.6 kilos. And when adding the power brick and cable for charging, the total weight increases to 3.1 kilos, so it's still fairly portable. As mentioned, the screen is a 1080p panel, which I personally prefer at the 15-inch size. It's a 60Hz display, which is fine, considering the NVIDIA 1050 Ti inside. As we'll see in the benchmarks, it doesn't often go too far above 60 frames per second in many games anyway. I've performed my usual backlight bleed tests on the display, which involves having the laptop show a completely black screen in a dark room to help emphasize any bleeding around the edges. I then take a long exposure photo with my camera to help display any bleed. So basically, this is a worst case scenario test. We can see there's a fair amount of bleed, mainly from the top, but also most corners. And I did notice this while using the laptop in a normally lit room during darker game scenes. This sort of thing can differ from laptop to laptop. I was curious and looked at some other reviews of this model, and didn't see any others that were as bad. So it seems like your mileage may vary. The brightness of the screen can be adjusted quite a bit, and I've found the viewing angles to be quite good. I can see the image and colors clearly on any angle thanks to the IPS display. The screen also has a matte finish to it, which I personally prefer, as you can more easily see what you're doing despite your lighting situation, as reflections are harder to see. While moving the display, I only found a little bit of flex. Nothing serious. Overall, it feels pretty sturdy, and the lid can be opened easily with one finger. Above the display is a HD webcam, so it's only capable of 720p video. Even in a room with some decent lighting, it still looks kind of grainy and noisy. The built-in microphone doesn't sound that great either, but I'll let you be the judge of that. The keyboard has been pretty nice to type with. It's definitely one of the better laptop keyboards that I've used. It's a full-sized chiclet keyboard with numpad, and all of the keys are RGB backlit over 4 different zones, allowing you to customize the look with the included ROG Aura Core software. The effects available are lacking a little. Hopefully they can be updated in a future software update. There's just a little keyboard flex, but it's only noticeable if you push down quite hard. It wasn't a problem while typing normally. The ROG button launches the ASUS gaming app, which lets you view system information and change the fan speed. I also liked the touchpad. It felt nice and smooth to the touch, and the left and right buttons are built in towards the bottom. In addition to this, you can left click anywhere on the touchpad with one finger press, or right click with 2 fingers. Additionally, I've found the touchpad to work very well, with the tracking working all the way right to the end of all edges. The front-facing speakers actually sound pretty decent, at least for a laptop. They sound a little muffled and aren't as clear at louder volumes, but there is some bass. Now onto the available I/O. On the left, there's the power input, air exhaust, RJ45 Ethernet port, HDMI port, 2 USB 3.0 Type A ports, a USB 3.1 Gen 1 Type C port, and 3.5mm headphone and mic jack. Over on the right, there's a USB 2.0 Type A port, a DVD drive, which I was a little surprised to see, and Kensington lock. As the USB port here is close to the front, I found that I had to plug the included Seeker mouse in on the left, otherwise it got in the way while using the mouse. The front features some basic status LEDs, full-size SD card reader, and the speakers are behind the orange mesh. There's nothing at all on the back except some subtle Republic of Gamers branding. Up on top there's some more ROG branding, which is LED backlit when the laptop is on. The aluminium lid was quite the fingerprint magnet, but nothing a quick wipe with a microfiber cloth couldn't fix. Underneath there's some air intakes to keep everything cool, as well as some orange rubber feet, which both stop the laptop from moving around on flat surfaces when in use and also rise it up slightly to help let cool air in. There's a 48 watt-hour 4-cell battery, and with a full charge and doing basic tasks such as browsing the internet and watching YouTube with the screen on around half brightness, keyboard lighting off, and background apps disabled, I was able to use it for 4 hours and 24 minutes. While playing The Witcher 3 with medium settings, the battery lasted just 38 minutes. It would have been nice to have a bigger battery. Personally, I'd have been cool if they removed the DVD drive and used that for battery space instead. Based on the specs and size, I thought the laptop would have adequate cooling space. During normal use with an ambient room temperature of 18 degrees Celsius, both the CPU and GPU idled at 40 degrees Celsius. While benchmarking for an hour with the same room temperature, the CPU reached a maximum of 87 degrees Celsius, while the GPU peaked at 75, which was a little warmer than I expected, but not too serious. The laptop was warm underneath, but fine on top, so no issues using it on a table. I also found the laptop to be fairly quiet. At idle, it sat around the 30 to 32 decibel mark, and I could barely hear it. With the fans maxed out, it went up to 53 decibels. I also didn't notice any coil whine while playing games. Finally, let's take a look at some benchmarks. We'll first cover some real-world gaming benchmarks, followed by tests with various benchmarking tools. All tests will run at the 1080p resolution, with all Windows and Nvidia updates to date installed. I've been playing a lot of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds lately, so let's start there. Even playing at high settings, we're sitting around the 60 frames per second sweet spot, though of course this can quickly dip depending on what's happening in the game and how many people are in the area. In Battlefield 1, we're getting decent frame rates. Even with ultra settings, we're still close to 60 FPS. The Witcher 3 is a bit different. Even at the lowest settings, we're only just starting to get close to 60 FPS. However, it was still very playable up to high. Watch Dogs 2 is another game that likes more resources. Again, we're almost at 60 FPS on the lowest settings. However, I had no issues playing it high to very high, and everything still looked great and played well enough. Ashes of the Singularity seems to be quite CPU intensive, and again, to get a decent frame rate, we have to play with low to high settings. Shadow of Mordor, on the other hand, worked well even at ultra settings, but I needed to swap to very high to sit around the 60 FPS mark. Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon was another that only reached 60 FPS at low settings. You could play on medium or high alright, but it wasn't a pleasant experience going up any higher. With Doom, I was easily able to average above 60 FPS even at ultra settings, so no real need to play any lower. We've seen that some of the games tested play at 60 FPS even with maximum settings, while others barely reach this target at minimum settings, so it really depends what games you'll be playing on the laptop. If you're curious, just look up benchmarks of your favorite game with the 1050 Ti and 7700 HQ CPU, and you should expect similar results with this laptop. Now onto the benchmarking tools. While a useful indicator, note that the results are less practical compared to the real-world gaming results previously shown. This is how the laptop performed in Heaven Benchmark with a tessellation set to extreme and anti-aliasing set to 8, and this is how Valley Benchmark performed with anti-aliasing on 8 at various graphics settings. I ran both the Firestrike and TimeSpy benchmarks from 3DMark and got scores of 6,317 and 2,406 respectively. In Crystal DiskMark, the 256GB Hynix SSD performed around 560 MB per second in sequential reads and 255 MB per second in sequential writes, which is about what you'd expect for a SATA 3 based SSD for the read speed, but the write speed seems quite a bit lower. After looking at the details for the particular model installed, it is performing exactly as advertised. So worth noting if writes are important to you. The 1TB 7200 RPM hard drive gets around 146 MB per second in sequential reads and 139 MB per second in sequential writes, which is about all you're going to get from a mechanical disk. Overall, I think we've got a pretty good laptop here. The build quality is nice and it feels quite sturdy, and the orange accented colouring is fairly subtle compared to other gaming laptops I've seen. The IPS screen looks great apart from the noticeable backlight bleed that was present in my model, and the battery is large enough for you to get a fair amount of work done away from power, but not too much gaming. If you are going to be doing a lot of gaming, depending on your games, you might want to look at a higher model with a 1060 instead of a 1050 Ti, as I've found that to provide a better all-round 60 FPS gaming experience at 1080p, but of course that will cost more. With these exact specs, I've seen this laptop for sale in Australia for anywhere between 1,900 to 2,100 Australian dollars, which at the time of recording translates to roughly 1,520 to 1,680 US dollars for my international viewers. As mentioned, you can get different disk and memory sizes, so the pricing can still vary a bit. So what did you guys think of the ASUS ROG Strix GL553VE gaming laptop? I found it to work pretty well. It offers a decent gaming experience with fairly good battery life for the size and specs. Let me know what you guys thought down in the comments, or simply leave a like or dislike on the video to let me know what you thought. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for future tech videos like this one.